and my fellow compeers. Title of my preclinical presentation is Could different doses of vitamin D3 offer analgesic benefits? A preclinical evaluation using standardized autoclave model of thermally induced pain using Swiss albino mice. I introduce my topic with the following statement that pain is the commonest symptom compelling individual to seek medical attention. Now, there exists a controversy around the use of vitamin D3 for nociceptive and inflammatory pain, and therefore this topic is highly debated. In order to address this conflict, we compared three daily doses, namely 15, 30 and 60 microgram per kilogram given daily for a period of 21 days and a single high dose of vitamin D3, that is 260 microgram, and compare it with the standard drug, namely tramadol, using the most resorted thermally induced pain model, that is the hot plate. Institute's annual ethics committee approval, and we followed the committee for control of supervision of experiments on annual guidelines. Now I began my study with a group of 6. Group 1 receiving tramadol, which is the positive control. Group 2 received 0.5% of carboxymethyl cellulose, which served as the vehicle control, as well as negative control. Group 3, 4, 5 received progressively escalating doubling doses of vitamin D3 at doses of 15, 30 and 60 microgram per kilogram. And the last group, the 6th group, received single high dose of 260 microgram per kilogram given only once and tested on day 21. Now the mice, Swiss albino mice were used, and they were dosed intraperitoneally in the form of suspension in 0.25% of carboxymethyl cellulose. And this is the Eddie's hot plate test, which is the standard and most validated model for evaluating thermally induced pain. And we found something very interesting that under the daily dosing, under the chronic effects of vitamin D3 given over a period of 21, we found that the baseline, that is, we evaluated this particular model over a period of 21 days, and they were tested serially on day 7, 14 and 21. And day 0 was before giving the dose. And then for a particular day, they were tested time intervals. Like for example, before dosing, 30 minutes after dosing, 60 minutes after dosing, and 90 minutes after dosing to evaluate the sustained effect. And this is the effect of that single high dose of 260 microgram. From here it's very explicit that the baseline, that is at day 0, it was around, the latency period was around 5.17, it was statistically significantly, it got raised to 13.33. Now, in order to evaluate the sustainability of effect, we calculated this particular maximum possible anti-nociceptive effect percentage. From here, it's very evident that tramadol exhibited maximum latency, it's up to 100, that is 15 seconds. However, the effect was transient. And from the network, the very right, the column graph shows that vitamin D3, there were very sparse studies in respect to vitamin D3, animal study. It was conducted by David et al. And the similarities between their studies and ours was that the positive control in both the studies showed maximum analgesic effect, and as evident from the previous figures, 60 microgram per kilogram consistently showed significant analgesic effect. Now, the difference is that just because we were not able to use morphine because of the restrictions on their use, we had to settle with tramadol, and which showed a very transient effect. Therefore, the comparison kind of could not be done in a standard way. And theirs was a single dose test, that is, they dosed the mice and on the same day they conducted the test. However, the USP of our study was that we dosed the mice for a period of 21 days, and in order to increase replicates, we dosed them at 0 following the standard model, but we also dosed them on the interval of 7, 14 and 21 days. So ours was the acute as well as chronic kind of phase of study. And apart from that, we also tested 260 microgram per kilogram per day dose, which has never been, up till now, it's never been tested. And all the drugs were in pure active pharmaceutical ingredient, which rules out the confounding effects of additives and excipients. However, our study was limited due to the restricted use of availability of morphine, and due to the restrictions on the use of mice, I had to settle for 6 mice per group. And in order to attain 80% power, the requirement was 14 mice per group. Now, in order to conclude my presentation with a very valid inference, I say that 60 and 260 microgram per kilogram dose of vitamin D3 showed significant analgesic effect. However, the effects were not superior to tramadol. These are my references and acknowledgement. My preclinical research is also available in the public domain in the form of a paper in the Indian Journal of Pain and a 3-minute thesis presentation.
Any questions from the audience?
I'm asking, you chose a model for central pain. So, what are pathways that you anticipate vitamin D3 is exerting an analgesic effect? maybe more of peripheral pathways that are.
So yeah, so this is just one phase of my study. I also conducted, I also evaluated peripheral analgesia using diclofenac. So it's available in my this thing. So I've just, in order to, because of the interest of time, I could only present only a single model. Otherwise, I've done both I've evaluated central analgesia effect as well as peripheral mechanism. And vitamin D3 is it's shown to be more effective in the peripheral analgesia model.
Exactly. So the model was not appropriate for this. And second thing, tramadol that you have seen. You said that tramadol was not a very good positive control. And you also concluded that the effect of your drugs were lesser as compared to tramadol. So where does the analgesic effect of vitamin D3 then stand? It was not even comparable to the not so good positive.
Now, if we look back, in our setup for a condition of osteoarthritis, vitamin D3 is very widely used. So we had this thing in mind that can we supplement vitamin D3, which is very widely used as a supplement. So can we in order to explore its dose reducing potential. So we tried this on an animal model, and secondly, even the evidence is not available. Preclinical evidence of vitamin D3 is very scarce. So we had this thing in mind that later on, if we find something useful, we could use this drug as an adjuvant to a central analgesic drug exhibiting central analgesic effect like tramadol or diclofenac. So yeah, so this was my rationale.
So you are using two doses, one is 620 mg and at last we are saying 260 mg also.
Yes, so there were 4 doses, progressively doubling doses, namely 15, 30, 60 and 260 microgram per kilogram. So the single, that is in tandem with the weekly dosing regimen, which is very commonly given, that is 60,000 international units. So keeping that in mind, we also kept this arm of 260 microgram per kilogram.
Thank you. This appears to be an interesting study, but if you have to justify the larger perspective, are you truly trying to replace tramadol or diclofenac, or beyond that? Because vitamin D3 is consumed otherwise by millions of people on this planet. So you have to be very careful, because pain is a very difficult terrain to play with. Some of the finest drugs have failed. You have to calculate potential dose in human too.
Yes.
So now your upper limit is 260 micrograms per kg. Try to convert it into what would be human equivalent dose. And
Yes.
is that going to be a feasible dose to elicit your desired pharmacological action?
Yes, definitely. Yes.
I just have one comment to make. Very interesting paper, as you said in the introduction, pain is something for which we look for it, and I think there are references that will get effect with vitamin D analysis. People are looking at it. One of my suggestions is that vitamin D is metabolized. So I don't know if it's a metabolite that you looked at. That was
The calcitriol,
you haven't
final
made
metabolite.
look at it. No?
Madam, the final metabolite is calcitriol, whereas we use cholecalciferol, which is the.
So rocalcitrol, that is, so maybe your next study will try with the metabolite.
So my wish to inform Madam that I even went ahead and I'm doing a systematic review. I applied for a grant and successfully I could even secure a grant for this particular systematic review for software. Madam, they even granted me a grant for to purchase a online annual subscription. Yeah.
Thank you.
So like vitamin D3 and this being regularly used for multiple reasons, other reasons, as a replacement or even in the adults, old age. So there the purpose is something like a bone reformation or in osteoporosis, which helps in the strengthening of the bone. So isn't that a confounder in your results? Have you seen what is the change in the bone density happening there?
Of course, bone density is bound to increase, but the thing is, vitamin D3 is very, among the inflammatory pathway of pain. Like, for example, there are too much of evidence available that it inhibits prostaglandin synthesis. So, in such a way, it's been now come to be known that vitamin D3 is very useful for peripheral analgesia. So, this was our rationale that it could be used as an adjuvant to the existing therapy so as to explore its dose reducing potential. Since opioids like tramadol, morphine, they are notorious for their dependence, respiratory depression, and addiction liability. Whereas the peripheral analgesics like diclofenac and paracetamol, they are nephrotoxic, so they come in with gastric irritation to list a few. So they come with a battery of side effects. So which can be in the peripheral analgesics like diclofenac and paracetamol, they are nephrotoxic, so they come in with gastric irritation to list a few. So they come with a battery of side effects. So which can be in this way. This was a rationale to explore its dose reducing potential as a supplement.
Final thoughts. You have to be careful when you are taking this work forward. It should not be counterproductive to the hypothesis which you are proposing. We like it. It is provoking our neurons to think and challenge you. But be careful. Talk to some of the experts working in that area. Apart from your lab or wherever you are working, that would and talk to some clinicians also. Yes. Who are treating are using vitamin D3 for their routine practice. That would help you refine your story better. Good luck. Thank you.
Yes, sir.